My son made me take care of his child, but he only let me sleep on the sofa, so I cut off the monthly support. While I squinted through my glasses to read, trying to figure out how to transplant the balcony plants, my phone began to vibrate on the table. The screen lit up with the name Evan. Right next to it was a photo of him holding baby Simon in his arms, both of them smiling so wide it looked like the sun had spilled into my living room. My heart instantly softened. I set aside the small trowel, wiped my hands on my apron, and answered quickly. Mom. Evan's voice came through soft and hurried, with a tired tone that held a hint of childlike pleading. Are you busy these days? I chuckled softly. I'm retired, sweetheart. What could I possibly be busy with? You, on the other hand, sound exhausted. Problems at work? No, I'm not working. He paused, and in the background, I could hear the faint, disjointed whimpers of a baby. It's Lara. She's exhausted. She hasn't stopped with the baby day and night. She barely sleeps. She's lost so much weight. Before he could finish, Simon's cry came through the line, sharp, shrill, and right into my ear. Evan let out a long sigh, heavy with fatigue and helplessness. Do you hear that? When this little guy gets going, no one stands a chance. Mom, we're at our limit. We need help. At that moment, my heart shrank, pulled by the sound of my grandson's cries. He was only 3 months old, still in that tender, sweet phase that melts your insides just by looking at a photo. That round little face in the picture had already made me smile more than once. Lara had a C-section, and after she gave birth, I wanted to help, but her mother was staying over, and I didn't want to overstep. Now that her mother was gone, it was obvious they were in over their heads. I'll be there, I said without thinking twice. Don't worry, I'll pack my suitcase tonight and buy a bus ticket first thing tomorrow. It had been years since my husband passed away. The house had been silent, too silent to be honest, so the chance to see Evan and the baby, to be useful, to feel needed again, well, that moved me deeply. After hanging up, I sat there for a moment with a full heart, making notes. I would need to bring some gifts, maybe some breathable cotton pajamas for the baby, something soft and comfortable for the summer, and those organic cloth diapers a friend had given me a while back. Much gentler on the skin than the disposables they sell in stores. For Lara, I remembered she once mentioned she liked collagen gummies, saying they were good for the skin. I'd bring some boxes, perfect for postpartum recovery. As I moved around the house tidying up, that little jab of loneliness I'd been carrying around seemed to dissolve in the excitement of anticipation. I even pulled out an old childcare guide I had saved, thinking I could refresh my memory on how to prepare baby food or ease colic with a gentle massage. After all, I raised Evan myself. Now that he has a child, how could I just sit with my arms crossed? Helping isn't an obligation. It's an honor. Even if it meant putting this old body to the test, it would be worth every ounce of effort. I already felt it. 3 generations under one roof, the sound of laughter echoing through the hallways. A sleeping baby curled against my chest. Just imagining it made me smile. The next morning, I was outside Evan's house, lugging a bulky suitcase and carrying a gift bag in my arms. Inside were boxes of collagen gummies for Lara and soft, breathable pajamas for baby Simon. I was thrilled. The door flew open and revealed Evan's familiar, radiant face. Mom, you're here? Come in. Let me carry your bag. He took the suitcase without missing a beat and set it aside naturally. I leaned over his shoulder, looking into the living room. It was relatively tidy, but the air carried the unmistakable scent of formula and diapers, mixed with something damp and sour, like stale leftovers of fatigue and anxiety that had long since settled into the walls. Lara came out of the bedroom holding the baby. She wore a loose robe and her hair was tied up in a messy bun. She was pale, with dark circles under her eyes. She looked at me with a vacant expression, nodded slightly, and murmured, Chloe, you're here? Her voice was neutral, neither warm nor cold, like someone greeting a distant neighbor who shows up unannounced. No smile, no welcome, nothing. The warmth in my chest fizzled like a matchstick dunked in water. Even so, I forced myself to ignore it. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe it was nothing personal. I quickly took out the gift bag and held it out to her. Lara, I know you've been exhausted lately, so I brought you some collagen gummies. They're supposed to help with skin recovery. I thought they might give you a little boost. She took the bag without looking inside. Thanks, she said in a monotone, then turned around and disappeared into the bedroom, carefully closing the door behind her. I stood there, my hand hanging in the air. For a moment, everything was silent, an awkward, heavy silence. Evan scratched his head, looking embarrassed. He rubbed his palms together and tried to fix the moment. Well, the thing is, he began, stumbling over his words, we're a bit short on space right now. That guest room is still full of Lara's pregnancy stuff, some baby items we haven't used yet. The old crib, a mess we haven't cleared out. So, for now, would you mind staying on the sofa? Just for a few days. I'll clean out the room this weekend and get it ready for you. He gestured toward the gray fabric sofa. It looked clean enough, but it was still just a sofa. I followed his hand with my gaze, and my heart gave a jolt. The sofa in the living room. I hadn't come here on vacation, that much I knew. I'd traveled to help them with the baby, but not even a room with a door. Just the living room. No privacy, no quiet. Only a shared space that would also serve as my bedroom. However you looked at it, it felt off. The thought slipped in, uninvited. I'm just an in-house maid they don't have to pay. But then I caught Evan's expression, a mixture of apology and desperation. He stood there like a kid who knew he'd done something wrong but didn't know how to fix it. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I pushed down the ache in my chest and gave a small smile. I patted him gently on the arm. It's fine, really. The sofa is big. I'm just one person. I don't need much. Go do whatever you need to do. Don't worry about me. Relief washed over his face. He looked like someone who had just set down a 50-pound backpack. Thank you, really. Let me get you some water. He disappeared into the kitchen. I leaned back on the sofa, running my fingers over the rough texture of the fabric. That silent disappointment coursed through me like a stone dropped into still water, creating ripples that wouldn't stop. Maybe he really would clear out the room this weekend. Maybe I was overthinking everything. Still, I couldn't help wondering if they saw me less as mom and more like a live-in nanny they didn't have to pay. I let out a quiet, bitter laugh. That first night gave me a real sense of making do with what I had. The sofa faced the sliding glass door to the balcony. There was a screen, yes, but with the summer heat, the mosquitoes seemed like flying ninjas. Their high-pitched buzzing hovered around my ears like a monotonous concert in a closed room. My arms and legs were covered in bites that itched, reddened, and hurt. Worse still, there was no separate air conditioner in the living room. June in Connecticut can feel like a sealed sauna. The window had a mesh curtain, but I didn't dare open it too wide. Those bloodsuckers could sniff out body heat faster than a heat-seeking missile. I lay there sweating, skin clammy and stuck to the cushion. And the sofa itself, betrayal in upholstered form, wasn't a bed, no matter how wide it might look. Every time I moved, I had to be careful not to roll off the edge. The springs creaked with every shift, noisy and squeaking like pots banging in a silent kitchen. Sleeping was impossible. On top of that, I'd spent half the day on a long bus ride, already exhausted. And there I was, half awake all night, anticipating the next wail from Simon through the bedroom wall. I don't think I slept a wink. Before dawn, I heard that all-too-familiar sound. Sharp, urgent cries cutting through the quiet, tugging at my chest. I got up right away and tiptoed to the master bedroom. The door was ajar. Inside, Lara cradled Simon, rocking him gently. Her forehead rested against his, brow furrowed in exhaustion. Evan was still sprawled on the bed, completely still, sound asleep. Lara looked up and saw me. Her expression froze for a moment before she spoke in a tone of annoyance. "Chloe, why are you up so early? Did we wake you?" "Oh, not at all. I was already awake," I said softly, trying to keep a light, casual tone. "I heard the baby crying and thought I'd check on him." She didn't return my smile. She simply said, "He's hungry." I was about to feed him, then turned away, a silent sign that she neither needed nor welcomed me any closer. I retreated quietly back to the living room. My steps suddenly felt cautious, as though I were afraid of stepping on something fragile. Over the next 2 days, I became the house's unofficial full-time nanny. Lara breastfed, but everything else, burping Simon, changing diapers, rocking him to sleep, cleaning up the mess, fell to me. Simon had the kind of energy only babies have. He hardly slept and demanded to be held as soon as he woke. I walked in circles around the living room with him in my arms until my back hurt and my arms felt like cement. As for Lara, she spent most of her time in her bedroom. She said she was recovering, but most of the time I saw her on her phone, giggling at videos or typing away with flying thumbs. On the rare occasions she appeared, it was to give me instructions. The bottles need to be sterilized. Chloe, don't put the baby's clothes in the washing machine. You need to wash them by hand. Chloe, the floor is dusty. Can you mop it? Each word felt like a to-do list handed to a household employee, cold, with hardly any eye contact. Evan kept up his usual laid-back smile, but left early for work and didn't come back until late. He'd coo over Simon for a minute, hold him for two, then hand him back and flop onto the sofa to decompress in front of the TV. Or he'd disappear into his home office with a lukewarm, "I have some work to catch up on." I never expected him to be super hands-on, but watching him dodge responsibility so easily left a bitter taste in my mouth. Mealtime was its own little humiliation. Lara did the cooking. Intense dishes with loads of garlic, black pepper, jalapeno hot sauce. They called it flavorful. For me, with my sensitive stomach and years of preferring mild and simple meals, it was overwhelming. Most of the time, I'd nibble on a bit of salad or pasta while the rest of the table happily ate. Eventually, I tried to speak up. "Lara, my stomach's a bit sensitive. Next time you cook, maybe you could make something lighter. Maybe a simple soup or skip the chili." She didn't even look up from her phone. "Chloe, you'll have to make do. I'm exhausted from taking care of the baby. I don't have the energy to cook separate meals. If it really doesn't work for you, you can eat out." Her voice was calm, almost polite, but the message was unmistakable. "You're lucky we're feeding you at all." Sweat beaded down my temples in the oppressive heat, and seeing her dismiss me so casually made something swell up inside me. Resentment, sadness, like dough that's been left to rise too long. It puffed up until it pressed against my chest. What was I doing here? I'd come all this way to help, to share in the joy of their family, to contribute. But now it felt like I was paying off an old debt with my body, like a penance for sins I didn't remember committing. By day, I cared for the baby. By night, I was mosquito bait on a lumpy sofa. Mealtime was a roll of the dice. Maybe there'd be something I could eat, maybe not. It had only been 3 days, but I already felt like a tired old dog, worn out and breathless. And yet, the hardest part wasn't the aching limbs or the sleepless nights. It was feeling invisible, as though I were nothing but a placeholder, a tool to be used but never truly seen. On the third afternoon, the heat had become unbearable. The air was so still that not even the slightest breeze stirred the trees outside. Sunlight poured through the windows like molten fire, turning the entire house into an invisible oven. Simon must have felt it too. He wouldn't stop crying, his little face red as a tomato. Sweat beaded his forehead and the tip of his nose. I walked in circles around the living room, fanning him with a handheld fan. But it was no use. He squirmed in my arms, those soft but relentless cries that tore at my heart. His face was so red it scared me. There was an old air conditioner on the wall, dusty but intact. It looked like it hadn't been used in a while, but it still seemed functional. I hesitated for a moment, then grabbed the remote, telling myself I'd only turn it on briefly, just long enough to cool the house for the baby. I was drenched in sweat, my shirt sticking to my back like wet paper. I pressed the button. The machine hummed to life. A gentle current of cool air drifted from it, soft and refreshing. Within minutes, Simon settled down. The relief was immediate. His eyelids drooped, his little fingers went to his mouth, and in no time, he was sleeping peacefully in my arms. I exhaled in relief and was about to sit down to finally rest when the bedroom door suddenly flew open. Lara burst out with quick, angry steps, frowning. She must have heard the air conditioner. Without a word, she crossed the living room in a huff and hit the power button. The fan stopped instantly, and the cool air vanished, replaced in a blink by that dense, stifling heat. It felt like someone had snatched away the last breath I had left. I stood there holding Simon, stunned, half believing I'd imagined it. Then she spoke, harshly, loudly, almost shouting, "Chloe, do you know how much electricity that thing uses in just 1 hour? We're already drowning in formula, diapers, the mortgage. We don't need to waste money by running the air conditioner all day. Use the fan. It's more than enough for a baby." Her tone wasn't a suggestion. It was a reprimand, cold and dismissive, like she was scolding a housekeeper who'd crossed the line. She didn't even look at me, just stood there glaring at the unit as though I'd committed a financial crime. For a moment, rage flooded my mind. My ears buzzed. I couldn't hear anything else, like my head was stuffed with cotton. It wasn't about the electricity, not even the scolding. It was the fact that I'd been holding a flushed, sweaty, uncomfortable baby, and my only thought was to ease his discomfort. That small, caring act, an instinct, had earned me a public humiliation. I looked at her. I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came out. A knot clutched my throat. Humiliation, anger, and something colder. Disappointment. Pain. It rose like a huge wave and crashed over me. I stood there, soaked in it, as though someone had thrown a bucket of ice water over my heart. It wasn't just that the air conditioner had been turned off. It was that part of me which had traveled all this way out of love, out of devotion, out of the desperate hope that I still mattered. She'd tossed that aside and stomped on it like it was worth nothing. Lara didn't wait for a response. She spun around, went back to the bedroom, and shut the door with a sharp thud. There I was, still in the middle of the living room, holding Simon, who had just calmed down and was now starting to whine again, as the heat wrapped itself around us like a damp blanket. The air felt thick and silent. I could hardly breathe. My eyes stung, but I refused to cry. Tears wouldn't help me. They never had. They would only make me seem small, weak, pathetic. Instead, I walked over to the sliding door. At least a tiny breeze slipped in once in a while. I picked the fan back up and waved it back and forth in slow mechanical motions. Simon shifted slightly in my arms, frowning, his face still flushed and damp, a reflection of how I felt inside. I gazed down at him once he drifted off, his soft, even breaths and his little hand curled into a fist against his cheek. He was beautiful, so innocent, so helpless. The more I looked at him, the more my heart ached. What had these last few days been? Sleeping on a sofa, legs covered in mosquito bites, eating meals that upset my stomach while I was told to make do, spending every waking hour caring for their child, cleaning the house, running around, just to be spoken to like an employee. And now, scolded for turning on the air conditioner to help their overheated baby. 3 days, that was all it took to break me. But it wasn't just the exhaustion that hurt. It was being treated as though I didn't exist, as if my help, my presence, my love were there to be used, not valued or even acknowledged. Hadn't I come here because they were young, overwhelmed, and I thought maybe, just maybe, I could lighten their load? But they didn't see it that way. Everything I did was expected, assumed. My kindness wasn't kindness to them, it was duty, obligation. Because we were family, because blood is thicker than water. I'd dreamt of warm, lively dinners, baby giggles, sleepy hugs, of being part of something again. Instead, I got sweat, silence, and growing pain that no one even noticed. That old phrase, the greatest pain is a cold heart, used to sound so dramatic. But now I understood. It wasn't rage or heartbreak. It was the slow freezing of everything inside me. I didn't want to argue. I didn't want to fight. What was the point of battling with someone who wouldn't hear you? Someone who only saw their own exhaustion, never your effort. In that hot, unair-conditioned living room, something inside me went still. And in that stillness, I made a decision. That night, when Evan got home from work and Lara was in the bedroom nursing, I pulled him aside. I kept my voice gentle and calm, careful not to let the weight of the last few days seep through. "Evan," I said quietly, "I'm heading home tomorrow." He had just taken off his jacket. His hands froze in midair as he turned to look at me. Surprise etched on his face. "What? You're leaving so soon, Mom? You've only been here a few days. I thought you were planning to stay longer, help us with the baby." I avoided his gaze. "Something's come up at home that I need to handle, and it seems like Lara has everything under control here." I didn't mention the air conditioner or the sofa. The meals, the orders, everything that felt like orders. There was no point. None of it would change anything now. Evan frowned with worry in his voice. "Mom, wait. Did Lara say something? Did she upset you? You can tell me. I'll talk to her. She's a little on edge right now, but she doesn't mean anything by it. Don't take it personally." I shook my head, managing a tired smile. "It's not that, Evan. Lara and I are fine, really. It's just that I have my own life too, and there are things I need to take care of." He looked like he wanted to argue, but no words came out. Finally, he just nodded slowly, lips pressed together. The next morning, before dawn, I had already packed my things. There wasn't much, just a few changes of clothes and toiletries. I left behind everything I had brought for them. Evan stood by the door, eyes slightly red, making one last attempt. "Mom, don't rush. I'll clear out the guest room today. I'll get you a real bed. Please, stay a bit longer. Make yourself comfortable. I shook my head gently, voice warm but firm. No, Evan, it's time. You have a full-time job, and Lara needs to get into her role as a mother. It's important you both learn to manage on your own. Even for me, those words carried a certain tone, a silent line in the sand. I won't be helping like this anymore. But I knew it was what needed to be said. Lara didn't come out of the bedroom. Maybe she was still asleep. Maybe she simply didn't care whether I left or stayed. Oddly, that made it easier. No need to pretend. Evan drove me to the bus station. The ride was quiet, full of unspoken things. He opened his mouth a few times, only to sigh and fall silent again. Right before we arrived, he reached into his wallet and pulled out 2 brand-new $100 bills. He held them out, looking embarrassed and hesitant. Mom, don't be mad. Lara's overwhelmed. The baby's been so fussy. And she's not herself. She didn't mean to be harsh. Take this, please. Buy yourself something nice. I looked at the money, and a tangle of emotions surged in my chest. An apology? A payoff? Did he really think $200 would cover the sleepless nights, the mosquito bites, their indifference, and the feeling of being invisible? I didn't take it. I gently pushed his hand away. My voice was steady, although something between us had silently changed. I don't need it, Evan. Really. I have my own money. Keep it. You'll need every cent with a baby at home. He didn't argue. He simply tucked the bills back into his wallet, eyes down as if he no longer knew what to say. When the car stopped by the curb, I opened the door and got out before he could follow me inside. Call me when you get home, okay? He said softly behind me, with an uncertain note in his voice. I will, I replied, lifting my suitcase. Then I turned and moved into the crowd without looking back. On the bus, as the scenery slid backward, my heart was quiet in a way it hadn't been in days. It wasn't anger or sadness. It was peace, a calm that came not from comfort, but from clarity. When I turned the key in my own front door and stepped inside, the familiar warmth of home washed over me. Sunlight filtered through the big windows, casting a golden glow over the hardwood floors, making them shine like honey. The silence of the house felt like a long overdue exhale. I walked into the bedroom and collapsed face first onto the bed, sinking into the mattress. I took a deep breath. The sheets smelled like freshly washed laundry and sunshine. It smelled like peace, like something that belonged to me. Those last days at Evan's house felt like a strange, enlightening dream. A bit absurd, a bit of an awakening. I sat on the edge of the bed, my gaze resting on the photo of my husband on the wall. His sweet smile looked back at me, warm and steady. Mentally, I could almost hear him saying, "Don't wear yourself out. Come home and rest." I spoke to him softly in my heart, a whispered confession, a tender goodbye. I remembered how we had scrimped and saved to help Evan buy his house. Back then, my husband was still alive. We drained our retirement fund to help with the down payment. He's just getting started, we said. Life is tough enough. Let's help him out. After my husband died, I carried on alone. When Evan and Lara couldn't afford the mortgage, I offered, or rather insisted, on sending $3,000 a month and kept that up for over 2 years. I believed giving would inspire gratitude, that love would be returned with love. But now looking back, I saw it. The more I gave, the more they expected. Not as generosity, but as an obligation. To the point that, in their eyes, this elderly mother had no right to turn on the air conditioner for her overheated grandson. Those 3 days weren't just exhausting. They were eye-opening, like a bucket of cold water poured over the illusion I had clung to for years. I used to think unconditional love for a child was something noble. Now I know some people will never appreciate it, only resent you for not giving more. The end of the month was coming. Time to make that familiar transfer. I sat on my soft, clean, comfortable sofa and opened the banking app. The balance wasn't huge, but it was mine, the security I'd built over a lifetime. I was fine. I didn't need much. As I stared at the screen, the memories played like a reel. Lara's cold eyes as she switched off the AC, Evan's guilty silence, my sleepless nights on that narrow sofa. I whispered the question out loud. Was it worth it? The answer came immediately. No, it wasn't. My finger hovered over the usual family transfer page, but I didn't press it. Instead, I opened a travel website, searching for short trips along the Portland coast. Then I looked up the local community college catalog, Introduction to Ceramic Illustration for Beginners. I'd made my decision. The money I used to send them every month would from now on be mine, not for Evan or Lara, or to make their life easier, but for me. A woman who spent most of her life caring for others and finally deserves to care for herself. To sleep well, eat what she likes, to live as a person, not a shadow, even if it's just new walking shoes or a leisurely dinner. That's not selfishness, it's dignity. The following days were quieter than usual. In the mornings, I strolled through the park, chatting with neighbors about their grandchildren and their gardening plans. In the afternoons, I watered the balcony plants, letting the sun warm my arms. In the evenings, I curled up on the sofa with the TV humming in the background and slept through the night without interruption. It wasn't a forced calm. Rather, it came naturally, like a knot slowly untying itself. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't clinging to the illusion of being needed. In that letting go, I found a gentler kind of freedom. 2 or 3 days after the end of the month, Evan finally called. As soon as I picked up, I heard it in his voice. That careful, tiptoeing tone that meant he wanted something. "Mom, you forgot something." I was holding the sprayer, gently misting the plants by the window. At his words, my hand paused in midair, but my voice remained firm. "No, I didn't forget." "Why?" He hesitated. "Well, you know, the mortgage. You didn't make the transfer this month." "Oh, right. The mortgage," I repeated, stepping onto the balcony. The garden was in full bloom, clusters of roses lighting up the space with color. I let my gaze settle on them as I spoke softly. "Evan, I've thought about this. From now on, you and Lara should handle the mortgage." The silence on his end was immediate. So absolute it sounded like the call dropped. But I went on. "Both of you have jobs now. You earn decent wages. It's time you carry the weight of your own house. My retirement fund didn't fall from the sky. It's the result of decades of hard work, saved penny by penny. I need to keep what's left, not to splurge, but because one day I might get sick or need care, and I can't afford to have nothing when that day comes. And besides, life isn't just about bills and errands. I want to take a ceramics class, maybe go north for a few days, stand on the shore, and listen to the ocean. Is that too much to ask?" The silence stretched on again. So long I thought maybe he had hung up. Finally, his voice returned, tense, sharper than before, with a hint of irritation he couldn't hide. "Mom, what are you saying? We had a deal. You said you'd keep helping me until I get promoted. You can't just stop like that. You know how tight things are this month. That's $3,000 gone, out of nowhere. We can't cover that overnight." It wasn't a plea. It was an accusation. Like I'd broken a contract, like I'd pulled the floor out from under them. I almost laughed. Was this what it all came down to in the end? After that sofa, those cold leftovers, the barking orders, and that empty stare when I switched on the AC for their baby? Promises go both ways. Respect does too. Evan wouldn't let up. He went on about how expensive the baby was, how stressed Lara had been, how they were doing their best. Then, more hesitantly, "Mom, this isn't about the AC thing anymore, right? I mean, come on, that was nothing. You're not still mad about that, are you?" I cut him off. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear, calm, firm, final. "This isn't about being mad or punishing anyone. It's about clarity. Evan, you're in your 30s. You have a job, a family. It's time to step up and act like a responsible adult, to take care of what's yours. I helped at first because I wanted to, because I know how hard it can be starting out. That was grace, not obligation. Now you're stable. You're making money. That house, your house, is your debt, your responsibility. You say it's hard? Sure it is. Nothing in life is easy, but you can't keep leaning on me the moment things get uncomfortable. I can help you for a season because I wanted to, but I won't carry you forever. And frankly, I've earned the right to start living for myself." Another silence. I could only hear his uneven, heavy breathing, like static on the line. After a long pause, he muttered, "Okay, I get it." And then the call ended. I stared at the screen as it went dark, still warm in my hand, and let out a silent sigh. It wasn't over. I knew that. Lara, with her pride and sharp tongue, wouldn't let it go. Not without a storm, I was sure. But for now, at least, I'd drawn the line, and I stood on my side of it. Sure enough, it wasn't even half a day before my phone rang, an unknown landline number. I looked at the screen for a moment, and deep down I already knew who it was. I answered with a simple, "Hello? Chloe, what the hell is this supposed to mean?" Lara's voice exploded through the speaker, shrill and cutting. She must have realized I'd blocked her cell number and had gone to the trouble of calling from a different phone. "You think you can just pull out like that? You promised to help Evan with the mortgage and now you decide to stop? That's not right. It's dishonest." Her voice cracked under her rage, as though I'd committed an unspeakable betrayal. Like withdrawing from their finances wasn't a decision but an act of treason. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I pressed my palm gently against my knee, clinging to that simple warmth. These same hands had cradled her baby, washed their dishes, folded their laundry, thanklessly. But she didn't stop. "Do you realize how much we're paying right now? Formula, diapers, bills stacking up. The mortgage is suffocating us. And you just walk away? Just like that?" She paused for breath, then went on, trying to bury me under guilt. "You promised, Chloe. You said you'd help until Evan got that promotion. What are we supposed to do now? Magically pull $3,000 a month out of nowhere?" Her words hit like darts, one after another. All sharpened with liar, irresponsible, selfish. Still, I didn't speak. I let her vent. I could hear the desperation beneath her rage. She needed someone to blame, and I was the easy target. I wasn't going to interrupt her moment. Meanwhile, my mind drifted back 3 weeks, to the suffocating heat of that living room, the sweaty baby crying in my arms, Lara stepping out to shut off the air conditioner with one cold flick of her wrist. We can't afford the electric bill. And here she was accusing me of cruelty and abandonment. Yet when I was the one broiling, sleep-deprived, living off scraps, working like a phantom in the background, where had her concern been? Her idea of help us had never been about collaboration. It was a one-way channel. I gave, they received, then they expected more. Finally, I spoke. My voice was steady, serene, as though I'd rehearsed it 100 times. "You're right, Lara. I decided to stop sending money, but it wasn't impulsive. I've thought it through for a long time. I helped you because I wanted to, but now I've decided I need to help myself." A pause, brief, heavy, tense. Then came the next wave, even harsher, more frantic. "How low, Chloe? Seriously, you're doing this just to make our lives harder? If we can't pay the mortgage, do you realize what that means? Are you ready to take that responsibility?" Her voice had a new tone, not just anger, but something darker, a warning, a threat. I didn't waver. I didn't raise my voice or match her tone. I simply answered quietly. "And Lara, that responsibility was never mine. That house was your choice, your loan, your responsibility. Being Evan's mother doesn't make me his financial safety net. I gave what I could, when I could. That was kindness, not a contract. I don't owe you anything. And you're right about one thing. Your life is difficult. Raising a child, maintaining a home, making ends meet, that's real. But it's your life you have to figure out, not mine that you need me to finance. I'm not punishing you. I'm simply done pretending that I don't have limits." Nothing. Total silence. No yelling, no protests. Just a sudden stop, like she'd slammed into an unexpected wall. Then the call dropped. I sat for a moment with the phone in my lap, watching the screen go dark. It was still warm from the call. My fingers were steady, my chest strangely calm. I thought maybe that would be the end, that we had finally drawn our lines and gone our separate ways. But life rarely lets you off so easily. Something told me Lara wasn't finished yet. It started with a phone call from a neighbor the next morning. I'd just gotten back from my community college ceramics class with a lump of clay in my hand. My first attempt at making a teacup, still damp and misshapen, but mine. I set it out to dry when the phone rang. It was Carol, an old friend and longtime church volunteer partner. Her voice was low, as if she were holding something back. "Chloe, is everything okay with your daughter-in-law? Lara came by the rec center today. She said you cut off their money and called her a freeloader, that you accused her of bleeding the family dry and driving her into postpartum depression." My hand trembled around the teacup. I almost dropped it. "She said that at the center?" I asked. "She's said it multiple times," Carol replied. "I didn't pay much attention at first, but she showed up again today and kept going. She's telling people you said, and I quote, 'I'd rather donate to a stray dog than give another dollar to your house.' She's even showing photos." "Chloe, did you really say that?" I closed my eyes briefly, pushing away the heat welling up behind them. "Thank you for letting me know, Carol," I said quietly. But no, I never said that. She sighed. Well, people talk. They're saying you're cold and cruel, that you turned your back on a poor new mother. After hanging up, I opened the neighborhood group chat on my phone. Sunny Brock Neighbors United, over 100 members. I scrolled and found it. Indeed, Lara had posted a screenshot of a private message, a chat record with me. It included a line from me that read, "Sometimes dogs are kinder than people. At least they know how to be grateful." And below was something like, "Some people think I'm a dog." Apparently, the post was blowing up with likes, shares, and concerned comments. I closed my eyes again. I remembered that message. It was mine, sent privately to an old friend the day I finally cut ties with Evan and Lara. My friend had, "You're too soft." I'd replied, half jokingly, half bitterly, "Sometimes dogs are kinder than people. At least they know gratitude." I never imagined it would end up plastered all over the town's notice board. Then there was another post, a photo of the cotton onesies I'd lovingly picked out at the mall last month. Back when I still believed Lara would someday say thank you. Now she had them listed for resale. The text read, "New, never used. A gift from my mother-in-law, but too old-fashioned. If interested, PM me." I stared at the screen, feeling my heart sink into a cold, heavy place. I'd spent an entire afternoon selecting them. She hadn't even thanked me, just posted them online to sell. I didn't reply. I didn't fight. I didn't try to clear my name. I left the group chat, silenced my notifications, and deleted contacts I no longer needed. But Lara wasn't done. 3 days later, I ran into her outside the supermarket. She had the baby in one arm and was dragging a shopping cart with the other. She slipped in right beside me, voice low but bitter. "So, Chloe, are you happy now? Everyone in the neighborhood is talking about you. You've made quite a scene." I said nothing, just grabbed a bunch of bananas. She kept going, her tone sharpening. "Why did you have to tell people I'm a leech? You think it's fun for me to walk into the post office and have people stare at me like I'm trash? Even here, people are looking at me like I'm nothing." I looked at her and still said nothing. She leaned closer, narrowing her eyes. "Aren't you worried that one day Simon will grow up and find out what kind of woman his grandmother really was?" That made me pause. I met her gaze, and for the first time in days, I let my voice be heard. "No, Lara. What worries me is that Simon will grow up and learn how his mother treated the woman who once held him while he slept all afternoon." She froze. I pushed my cart a few steps forward, then spoke again without looking back. "I'm not your ATM. I'm not your maid. If you want to insult me, lie about me, sell whatever I give you, go ahead. But don't think I'm going to keep bending over and handing you pieces of myself just so you can stomp on them. Simon isn't an orphan, and you're not crippled, so stop pretending you need to be rescued." Her cheeks flared with anger. "What do you want from me?" I paused, turned slightly. My eyes flicked down to the baby in her arms, small, squirming, stretching toward the sunlight. My expression softened, but only a little. "I don't want anything," I said. "I just want to live my life, sleep in the bed I paid for, spend the money I earned, go where I want, and eat what I like. You think I don't love Simon? I love him more than I can say. But I won't let that love be used to control me just so you can curse me for getting in your way." Then I walked into the store. Behind me, I heard Simon's little whimper, the start of a baby's cry. Lara didn't follow. That night, I slipped on my comfortable clothes, put the kettle on, and filled a tub with warm water for a soothing foot soak. Steam rose in gentle curls, and for the first time in a long while, my little home felt quiet, almost free from the noise of the past few weeks. Then my phone buzzed. It was Evan. We hadn't spoken since that day at the store. His message read, "Mom, I'm sorry. I know Lara went too far this time." I stared at the words, my thumb hovering over the screen, but I didn't reply. Apologies are nice, but this one came too late and too cold. For the next 2 weeks, my days felt almost unreal in their silence. No messages, no calls, not even a passing mention from Carol. It was as if the storm had finally quieted, leaving only distant ripples behind. Until that afternoon. I was sitting on a park bench, watching the wind whisper through the trees, when my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. "Mom!" The voice on the other end sounded shaky, frantic. "It's me, Simon. He's got a high fever, almost 102 Fahrenheit. He's out of it, and I don't know what to do." It was Evan. His voice broke. I've been trying to get the hospital on the line, but I can't get an appointment. Laura's not answering my calls. I don't even know where she is. I don't know what to do. My heart clenched. Where are you? I asked. I'm coming now. He gave me the hospital's name, and I grabbed my purse without a second thought. I didn't dwell on the past or on what had been said or unsaid. I only knew my grandson was sick, and they needed me. The ER was chaos. Crying children echoed in the halls. Evan was in the triage line, sweating through his shirt, arms aching as he held a limp, feverish Simon against his shoulder. The baby's little hand clutched the collar of his dad's shirt. His small body burned with fever, his cheek pressed against Evan's neck as soft, desperate whimpers slipped out. Evan's eyes darted between the endless line ahead and the pale, sweaty baby in his arms. He looked like a man falling apart, overwhelmed and helpless. Then, near him, a small motion caught his eye. At the neighboring desk was an older woman with gray hair, wearing a navy blue cardigan draped loosely over thin shoulders. She was gently rocking a feverish toddler in her arms while rummaging in her purse for an insurance card. At her feet was a children's backpack, plus 2 bulky packages of diapers. The child slumped on her shoulder, eyes red and glassy, lower lip trembling from crying. Quietly, the woman whispered, "Hang on, sweetie. Grandma's going to check you in. We'll see the doctor soon, okay?" Evan froze, struck by a sudden flash. A memory. He had been that feverish child once in a hospital at night, crying, and she, his mother, had been the one standing in line for hours with him cradled in one arm and the paperwork in the other. She had knelt to give him water and whispered comforting words, even though her own eyes were heavy with sleeplessness. She stayed up all night for him. He hadn't thought about it until now. A knot formed in his throat. A strange heat rose behind his eyes. He looked at Simon, his own feverish son clinging to him for comfort, and for the first time, an apology surfaced, not to his son, but to the woman who wasn't there to hear it. "I'm sorry," he whispered. By the time I arrived at the hospital, Simon had already been admitted. He was curled up against my chest, flushed red and breathing in short gasps. His tiny hand grabbed my blouse like an anchor. Evan sat next to me, shoulders slumped, silent. After a long pause, he finally spoke in a low voice. "Mom, I'm sorry, for everything." I didn't look at him. I kept my focus on Simon. "How long has he had a fever?" I asked softly. 3 days, he answered, barely louder than a whisper. Laura said it was just a cold. I believed her. I figured it would go away, but this morning he wouldn't wake up properly. That's when I realized it wasn't just a cold. I nodded once without speaking. Evan let out a long sigh. "Laura was out with friends the other night. I didn't push it. I didn't think. God, I didn't think." I turned to look at him then, my gaze steady and piercing. "You're a father, Evan. Your son had a fever for 3 days, and neither of you did anything. You went to work, she went out partying, all the while your baby was burning up." His head dropped as though someone had punctured all the air from him, like a balloon leaking until it was completely deflated. Meanwhile, across town, Laura was living the most humiliating moment of her life. The day before, she had proudly posted a photo on Facebook, wearing a stylish camis and sparkly lip gloss, posing with a group of friends at a trendy cafe. The caption read, "Being a mother doesn't mean forgetting who you are. A child is not an excuse or a cage." The comments poured in, "You look gorgeous." "I love your vibe." Laura smiled, clicked like, and leaned back, satisfied. But then a new comment shot straight to the top. It was from her old college roommate, now a pediatric nurse at a local hospital. "How interesting. Your son's in the ER right now with a fever of 102. But sure, go ahead and be you." The thread went silent. One of the women at the table, someone Laura barely knew, looked at her and said, "Maybe you should stop complaining about your mother-in-law not helping. Looks like you're not helping yourself either." Laura froze, cheeks going pale. The brunch was a disaster. She didn't say goodbye, just grabbed her purse and stormed out. She didn't go home. She didn't go to the hospital. Instead, she sat in her car, scrolling through old photos, most of which she used to roll her eyes at. One in particular gripped her. A photo of Chloe holding Simon upright, gently patting his back to help him burp. It was a picture she had once deleted, calling it boring and clingy, but it had somehow been restored from a backup. She stared at Chloe's expression, so patient and gentle, eyes full of care. She remembered mocking her, insulting her too many times. She remembered the day she posted the baby clothes Chloe had bought, calling them too old-fashioned, trying to sell them online for a few bucks. Someone had haggled the price down to less than the cost of a cup of coffee. And then, abruptly, something in her cracked. She sat in the car crying for 2 whole hours, makeup streaking down her cheeks, voice turning hoarse. The next night, she was at the hospital with Simon. His fever had finally subsided. His breathing was deeper, more regular. He lay curled against my chest, one hand loose around my shirt. Evan had fallen asleep next to me. He hadn't slept in days. Around 2:00 a.m., my phone vibrated. It was from Lara. Not a call, not a text message, an email with no subject line. The message was shaky and scattered, an apology without excuses or sugarcoating. She wrote that she'd blamed our problems on mother-in-law drama, when the truth was she'd been lazy. She admitted lying about what I'd said. She admitted selling the clothes I'd bought and laughing about it. It was all wrong. Everything. She wrote, "I'm not a good mother. I haven't been a decent daughter-in-law. I know it's too late, but I hope you believe me when I say I finally get it." Attached was an old photo of the two of us laughing in the kitchen, hands coated in flour while baking cookies. An authentic moment, a happy one. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I put the phone face down on the bedside table and closed my eyes. In the weeks that followed, Simon got more fevers, as babies often do. But this time, Evan and Lara didn't immediately call me in a panic. They handled it. Sometimes they'd message me, "Mom, he seems to have a rash. Should we alternate Tylenol and Motrin?" Usually I'd answer, but I started waiting longer, on purpose. Not because I was angry, but because they needed to try on their own first. Lara's messages were short, polite. Never warm, but not hostile anymore. The edge in her tone was gone. I didn't ignore her, I just didn't rush to smooth things over. I stopped rushing altogether. We weren't fixed, but maybe we were going in the right direction. The plants on my balcony bloomed again. I transplanted them all, carefully loosening the roots, trimming leaves, and refreshing the soil. That afternoon, sunlight poured across my living room floor in soft rays. I curled up on the sofa with a cup of tea, flipping through the travel guide I'd once left unfinished. And for the first time in a long time, I truly understood something in my bones. A good life isn't about just surviving. It isn't about sacrificing yourself until there's nothing left. A good life is one where you don't have to beg for breathing space, where you don't have to earn kindness, where you care for yourself, not to prove anything, but because you deserve to be cared for. I wasn't going anywhere. I didn't plan on leaving again. But I wasn't the same mother who jumped at every cry. I wasn't the woman who stretched herself thin to avoid loneliness or the invisible force that quietly held up someone else's home. I was me. The relationships in my life still had healing to do. The child I loved was still growing. And my days, my real, full, enriching days, were just beginning. Only this time, I was finally living them for myself.